Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Legacy Speaks. As people of faith and love, we have a heart for other people, and although we are not of this world, we have a tendency to get caught up in all the inner workings of today's society. I'm pretty sure all of our timelines look the same right about now. Constant updates of the rising death tolls as well as confirmed cases all over the globe. Not only that, a number of employment rates as well as layoffs all over the nation. And let's not talk about all the various supply shortages that we are experiencing. The list goes on and on. And a lot of these things have a tendency to tug at our hearts, which is understandable. That's why empathy and compassion are only natural to experience as we are witnessing each other go through this time of crisis. However, it becomes a problem when it gets too much for us and we find ourselves at our emotional thresholds. This is what we like to call compassion fatigue. So today we're going to talk about what compassion fatigue is, what it looks like, the signs and symptoms, who can acquire it, as well as some solution-focused methods for combating compassion fatigue. But before we dive right in, I need you to hit that subscription button below. That way you can stay up to date on newly released content on a regular basis. So let's dive right in. What is compassion fatigue? It is a stress response that presents as the reduced ability to be there emotionally for other people, or we also find ourselves disassociating from our own emotions. So you're probably wondering, who gets compassion fatigue? Well, everybody gets compassion fatigue. So we're going to do this thing like Oprah, right?
You get compassion fatigue, you get compassion fatigue, you get compassion fatigue.
Oh no, but seriously, everybody can get compassion fatigue, but we find it common amongst people who are at the front lines of movements that challenge grim realities. And although everyone is susceptible to compassion fatigue, it's heavily seen amongst caregivers. So individuals who provide care and support for family members like the elderly within our home and our families, as well as those who help out within the healthcare system. So you have your medical doctors, your nurses, your psychiatrists, your therapists, all of your counselors, social workers. Let's not forget our teachers within low socioeconomic communities, as well as our pastoral staff, and then our Red Cross volunteers as well. There are a number of warning signs and symptoms, but the one that sticks out the most is the inability to be there emotionally for other people, or the inability to hold space for another individual. But also the loss of objectivity, so the inability to see things from a clear perspective, which ultimately impacts our decision making. Bottling up one's emotions and suppressing one's emotions, which eventually creates resentments towards other people, as well as resentments towards our circumstances and time overall. We also see a lost sense of enjoyment in the things that we once appreciated or loved doing. And this often goes into feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, powerlessness, feeling as though you have no control over a situation. A couple of other things that tend to come about are the difficulty to be able to think clearly, like we mentioned earlier before, caused by mental fatigue, physical fatigue as well. There's difficulty with concentration caused by increased racing thoughts. This also leads to difficulties with our sleep and our appetite. So nightmares, insomnia, the inability to fall asleep, as well as issues with our appetite, whether it's the loss of an appetite or overeating in order to compensate whatever void we're trying to fill. And as a human being, there are two things that I already know that we do not mess with. That is our sleep and that is our food, okay? So this translates into having irritability, cynicism, a poor attitude, and not being a team player. And ultimately, individuals really don't like dealing with people who have these types of issues and these signs and symptoms. So this leads to isolation and withdrawal as well. Lastly, another struggle with compassion fatigue is poor self-care. So not being able to do your activities of daily living, not maintaining your regular upkeep. And then there's operating in denial, ignoring all of the signs and symptoms of what you're experiencing and diving headfirst into your work or trying to push it off to the wayside. All right, now after listening to that whole list of warning signs, I'm gonna need you to hit the like button if any of that stuff resonated with you. Now really quickly, you're probably listening to all of those signs and symptoms and thinking to yourself,
hey, that sounds like burnout.
And yes, you're right. Compassion fatigue and burnout are often confused with one another, but although these two manifestations of stress are closely related, there are some unique differences between the two. For those of you who are new to the concept of burnout, please check out my previous video about the topic, but really quickly I want to go into the differences as well. So whereas compassion fatigue is very suddenly burnout gradually happens over time. Compassion fatigue is highly treatable if identified early. Typically, a lot of individuals recover from compassion fatigue very quickly. However, burnout is a different story. Individuals usually require a complete environmental shift or a complete mindset change as well. A lot of individuals have a tendency of leaving their job or just moving altogether. Those who experience burnout usually don't go back to the perceived stressor, so what you'll find is them throwing in the towel out of self-preservation. All right, just to recap, we talked about what compassion fatigue is, who is susceptible to it, and what are the signs and symptoms that we need to look out for. Now, stay tuned for the next video. I'm going to jump right into the solutions that we can utilize to combat compassion fatigue. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Legacy Speaks. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and definitely stay connected via Legacy SBKS on everything. Until next time. Hey. That's what them young kids be doing. Hey. Girl. Okay, let me get back to business.